Hello, everyone, and welcome to Third Coast Thursday. It's Thursday. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad that you tuned in to catch this episode of Third Coast Thursday. We are at home together with this web series. And just to remind you, my name is Angela Young Smucker, and I'm the executive director of Third Coast Baroque. And I am very excited about our guest today, and I'll get to that in just a second. But first of all, I just want to remind you that if you haven't already, make sure that you keep in touch with us. You can subscribe to our email newsletter by just going to our website at thirdcoastbaroque.org. You can follow us and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're doing all the social media things, trying to keep up and keep in touch. So if you're not already following us in one of those places, please do. We're having fun on the interwebs, and we're really glad you're here. One more announcement I would like to say before we get going with our guest is Saturday, May 30th at 1 p.m. Central Time, we are going to present a virtual benefit. It's called At Home Together, and it will be hosted by our artistic director, Ruben Jabrowski, and myself. We are going to conquer the technology gods and bring you live in-home performances from some of our artists and special guests that we have lined up for next season. We're also going to be sharing some video from our archives, some virtual music making that's being put together and processed right now, and some special messages from folks from our Third Coast Baroque community. We're really excited about it. So make sure you tune in live. We'll be on the air from 1 to 3 p.m. Central Time, and then the broadcast will be available to rewatch for 48 hours after the end of the live broadcast. So about 3 p.m. Central Time on Monday, June 1st. So you have 2 days to catch it. We hope that you will join us live. But right now, I want to welcome the one and only, the elegant, the wonderful, Meriem Bahri. How are you?
Hi Angela, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. We have to give a shout out to our board president, John Sagos. Bonjour. Look,
Bonjour, John.
yay! What does
I
this
can
say?
see his message.
Yay, good. Oh, is that happy? That's not happy
Happy
June.
Thursday.
Happy
He's
Thursday.
saying
See, I
joyeux
told you.
jeudi, oui.
I'm not going to attempt to speak French because
I know he speaks French.
he speaks great
Yeah.
French. John, we know. And yay, Liz is watching.
Hello, Liz.
Oh. Liz and I had a good time on Tuesday, so thanks for coming back. Liz, it's always good to see you. Um, well, Miriam, my goodness, we had a lovely chat yesterday, and I sort of mentioned this in the notes to the show. You've had a very interesting journey to get where you are as a visual artist and as a costumer, and I kind of want to dig into that right away. Can you tell us, first of all, you have a PhD in biology, which just amazes me. Okay, so first, can you start with this journey with biology? Like, how did you come to have a PhD in biology?
Yes, so, well, first I have to say since I'm a kid, I was always very drawn to drawings and art and literature. But my background is they were encouraging about all the artistic things, but also saying like, well, if you have to have a job, it should be something in science. So in high school, science in French school are divided in between, math, physics, chemistry, and biology. And biology was, I would say, my favorite between those, and in particular because I thought that if I choose biology, I can draw, because in high school you draw a lot of plants and cells, and you dissect an animal and then you have to draw what you see. So I thought, okay, I can have the both of the two words.
See, that was like my number one reason why I didn't want to take biology in high school. I was like, I think I have to like draw cells and stuff and use colored pencils, and that was so not up my alley. Oh my gosh. So Thank you for picking up the slack for, the whiners like myself. So you got into it sort of through that visual component of it right
Yes.
away.
Yes, but I
Wow.
was very disappointed. So
Oh
I have
no.
to say, in in France, it's not exactly like in the US. So here
Uh-huh.
you can have a minor and a major.
Okay.
In France, you have to choose at 17 years old what you want to do for the rest of your life. So when you're
Oh my
17,
gosh.
you choose biology, then you're there. And I remember very well my first one of my first class when I had to draw in biology class, and I had to look at something in the microscope and draw at the same time, and I had a very bad grade on my drawing, and I was very disappointed because I thought I made a wonderful drawing,
Oh.
but I had to do something very schematic. So they were telling me, no. If you see a cell, you don't do like any shades or
Mm-hmm.
ombre or anything. No. You see a cell, you draw a rectangle. Even if it's not a perfect rectangle, you draw a perfect rectangle,
Oh my
etc.
gosh.
So I had to learn how to actually calm down my I don't know my excitement about drawing and have everything drawn very in like a kind of say
Yeah, yeah.
schematically. Yes,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
very
It's sort of
technical drawings.
exactly like a very matter of fact kind of visual
Yes.
presentation. Oh my gosh. So when you were doing this in biology class, were you sort of just drawing things also at home just for fun, or was
Yes,
it sort
as
of yeah.
I always been drawing, especially I will say maybe even when I was even younger,
Mm-hmm.
drawing a lot of characters, especially women. I think I still have a binder with all my drawings as a 13 years old or 15 years old wanting to be a fashion designer.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
I think we need to see those. A complete Miriam retrospective. Oh, that's wonderful. That's
yeah.
wonderful. So you were talking about, you know, having, like a real job doing biology, and that was just sort of understood, and getting a PhD in biology was just sort of a normal
Oh
that
yeah,
like that
that
was
yeah, that can sound strange because
yeah.
I'm like, I don't really like biology, but I'm going to do a PhD. It's because that's very simple and it sounds a bit ridiculous now when I think about it. But my parents both have a PhD, so in my mind, it was completely normal and assumed that if I begin to go to college, I will finish with a PhD. Exactly like when you begin middle school, you're going through the whole middle school and then high school. So
Okay.
in my mind, it was not even a question. It's like, of course, I'm going to have a PhD in that field that
Wow.
I choose.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So now, were you doing any kind? We know that you have become this incredible costume designer, and so were you doing any kind of costuming before you came to Chicago, or during that, your college years, your advanced studies?
Yeah, a little bit. So I began. So while I when I started my PhD, I also took classes,
Mm-hmm.
dance classes, and we had a wonderful teacher, and we were all very involved. It was a group of Afro Brazilian dance, and
Amazing.
everybody was very involved, and we were doing carnival, like street carnival shows, and it was a mix of amateur dancers and professional dancers, including the dance teacher. And we had, it was a group with not a lot of money, so we helped each other making the costumes. We had a costume designer who was a friend of the teacher, and she was helping with the costume. And this is how I start using a sewing machine for the first time of my life. And
Yes, I was
yeah.
going to ask you. So, like, how did you learn to sew?
So one day she was insisting to have some help, and I say, I can come and help, but I have no idea what to do with a sewing machine. And she prepared everything, and she had like, okay, this is just a straight stitch. You sit down here and you push with your feet on the and with your foot on the pedal, and you
Mm-hmm.
just go straight. That's it.
Oh,
That's
okay,
what I'm
perfect,
asking. I'm like,
easy.
okay, I can do that, and this is how I started.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
I think I probably would have sewn my finger into the machine like the
Oh,
first
I
try.
almost did.
Oh no. All the thimbles, like thimbles everywhere. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you started making these costumes, or just
Yeah.
one costume for the.
I was helping with costume. It was that phase was very, very simple. And then at some point, the teacher asked me if I wanted to, like in Brazilian carnival, you have to imagine Rio de Janeiro
Mm-hmm.
carnival with a woman in bikinis with very, very big headdresses with feathers.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, do you want to have a costume like that? You should be one of those dancers. And I was like, yeah, I would like as a dancer doing that, but it was a small company, and I knew that those costumes were, shared.
Aha.
And I know, yeah, that might be my biologist side. I was like, it's not very clean, and it's not easy to clean those costumes. It's only like clean drying. I'm like,
Right.
so instead of that, I was say, well, maybe I will try to make my own costume, and this is how I had this idea. And at that time, I think it was maybe just before I tried to sew on with a sewing machine. I had like no
Mm-hmm.
sewing lessons at all, so I did my costume everything by hand, and that was evenings and evenings of sewing
Wow.
beads and glitters,
Oh
a
my
very
gosh.
shiny costume.
I
Yes.
love it. I love it. So, okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. You've graduated from college, you've gone through, the whole process, you've gotten your terminal degree,
Yeah.
and then you come from Europe. And actually, let me back up just a little bit so everybody knows where you're from, because we hear your beautiful accent, this lovely French accent. Um, but but you're not just French. Can you
No.
talk about your background a little bit?
Yes, so I am French and Tunisian, and I'm born in Tunisia, and my
Mm-hmm.
parents are there too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm born in Tunisia, but then we left Tunisia when I was 1 year old, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
even less. And then we stayed in France for 9 or 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was back in Tunisia for another 9 years.
Oh wow.
For so all middle school and high school in Tunisia in a French school.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I have what we call the baccalaureate, so when you
Yep.
finish high school, you have a big test. And then after that, I came back to France by my own, so without my parents this time, to study biology.
Wow. So, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but can you talk about this sort of having two nationalities and what that feels like?
Yeah, it's very strange when people ask you, but like, are you more this or that, or can you
Mm-hmm.
tell me how does it feel to be French, or how does it feel to be Tunisian?
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel like it's just like a third nationality is being like binational. So I'm
Uh-huh.
I'm French and Tunisian. So
Uh-huh.
I'm not just French, I'm not just Tunisian, and I feel I have something more or less than someone who is completely French or someone who is completely Tunisian, and I find that feeling with other people who are also binational, or I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, Brazilian and Portuguese, or
Mm-hmm.
Chinese and Japanese. It's like this, like being in between two things and not being 100%
Mm-hmm.
one identity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you create a completely new one, like you said. It's like this third iteration. I love it. I love it. But I'm sure that can sort of there can be some push and pull inside of
Yeah,
how you feel about.
absolutely. So sometimes what I say is that I say, "Oh, I feel Mediterranean,"
Mm-hmm.
because there's this beautiful sea between those two countries. So I think this is my place.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here. So let me go back to back to the timeline. Um, you've finished your degrees. Um, And yes, as John Sago says, she's a little bit country. She's a little bit rock and roll, a little bit French, little Tunisian. She's all Chicago now. Um, so yeah, so you get to Chicago. So tell us about that. I mean, that's
Okay.
quite a jump to make.
Yeah, so that was in 2011. And so I arrived in Chicago thinking I will find probably a postdoc in biology. And
Mm-hmm.
but when you arrive in in the US, you don't come and work right away. You have to wait a little bit for your social security number, for your permit,
Sure.
authorization of work, and blah blah blah. So I had a few months like that where I had
Mm-hmm.
time to think
Mm-hmm.
about what I wanted to do, and my English was not very good.
Mm-hmm.
I was able like to write article, like scientific article in English, but not just talk every day about simple
Right.
things.
Right.
Very
That's
different
like the
type of
singer.
English.
That's like the singer who knows like Italian lyrics from art songs and arias, but to hold a conversation is like it's not happening. It's like, do
Yeah,
you want to
it's
talk about love or being abandoned or nature? We can talk about that, but yeah.
it's a very good analogy. I never thought about that, but yeah,
Oh,
that's exactly that.
absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. We singers, we can sing in all these languages and, we do learn the function of them, but we're not necessarily fluent in all of that. So, anyway.
So,
Yeah.
well, my English was bad. I had some time off, and I wanted to learn how to knit because
Mm-hmm.
I'm very manual. I thought that would be nice to learn. So I found a coffee shop in the neighborhood, and I learned how to. It was a knitting club. So
Uh-huh.
when I went there to learn how to knit and speak English, which is actually was not possible to do both together at the same time. For me, it was like doing that thing like when you
Yeah,
have
you're
stuff on your
patting your
head. Yeah,
head and rubbing your stomach at the same
yeah.
time.
It was very
Absolutely.
difficult. So it was one or another, and there I met a soprano that you know.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So we have a mutual friend, Heather D'Souza, and Heather, if you're watching, I hope you say hello.
Hello.
Yes. So I want to take over for just 1 second. Um, so in 2011, that was when Haymarket Opera was just starting up, and Heather and I were scheduled to be in the very first performance of the opera company. And I remember having a meeting with the cast of three of us and with Craig Trumpeter, the artistic director. And at one point, we were talking early on in the process, and he asked, we need to get our costumes in order, and do you know anybody in particular who might be good at this? And I remember in this meeting, Heather D'Souza saying, "Oh yeah, there's this young woman in my knitting group who I think might be great for this." And I mean, there it was. So, besides your Brazilian carnival costume, you know, this was essentially your first costuming gig, yeah?
Yes, that's true. And then, I mean, for myself, I was also sewing
Yes.
clothes, and some of my clothes were actually inspired by historical clothes.
Mm.
And I have those books. I actually, it's funny. I just remember that when you finish your PhD, you have a party, and
Of
your
course.
colleagues are giving you gifts, and my gifts were sewing books, like historical sewing books.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I was really into it.
Oh,
And I'm still using those books.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
And I always loved history too, so I always had an eye,
Mm-hmm.
when I watch movies or anything to see how things were made.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, with Haymarket it was my first like real gigs for historical costuming. Mhm.
How did you feel going into that?
Oh, I felt so lucky,
Yes.
incredibly lucky because it was like I would love to design costumes, but I was feeling like, okay, like a historical costume would be like my dream, and I always thought I would there would be like 10 stages before that.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
my first opportunity was historical costume. It was unbelievable.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I will never forget being a part of that process. Um and seeing the costumes being built. And actually um what I love is when I go to a Haymarket performance and I'll see little pieces being used or rebuilt or oh,
Recycle. Yeah.
yes, exactly. I think we might have used my own petticoat for that one. I think I
Yes,
I
it's
donated my
true.
petticoat from my wedding.
Yes, it's true. So it was the first show. The budget was
Yeah,
extremely
like
tiny, and so it was where where can we save money? So I was like, do you have your wedding petticoat, Angela? And
I
yes.
did, and I was happy to share it, happy to
And
pass it along.
I remember something. Well, you probably remember that I cut a bit of your petticoat to just make it like more like a early 18th century
Oh yeah,
shape.
yeah. Yes.
And you were cool with that. I'm like, wow, she's cool with me like cutting
It's
a piece of her
fine.
petticoat.
It's fine. It's not like it's getting a whole lot of use.
It's
Although
true.
maybe I should start. I think I'll start wearing petticoats now for all of my performances. Once we get, maybe I'll just wear one next week for the next show. It'll be fine. You don't see me from the waist down, but I'll feel good in a petticoat.
You can create a new style.
Exactly. The petticoat strapless gown. I mean, petticoat all the way. Anyway, um, so well, and like I said, I remember you building these costumes, but and I want to show some folks your work here in just a second, but I what I want to say about what I've seen from your work is just the incredible progression that we come to expect from people who are going through a learning process, but also people who are just developing their skills over time. But what I have to say is that the progress from your very first project just to the second one was like exponential. I mean, it was incredible. And can you talk about how that came to be after that first project with Haymarket? What happened there?
Yes. So the first project was I was building this costume in August,
Mm-hmm.
and the second one was maybe for January and February.
Mm-hmm.
And in between, so I met Ellen Hargis, who was
Mm-hmm.
our stage director at that time,
Yes.
and she managed to connect me with the Boston Early Music Festival,
Mm-hmm.
and I had an internship there in October or November
Mm-hmm. Oh
of the
wow,
same
yeah,
year.
it was
So I
super
went
fast.
there, and I think I was absorbing as much as I can. I
Yes.
was seeing the costume here, like asking plenty of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a little bit after or just before, I also had an internship at the Joffrey Ballet. Well,
Mm-hmm.
completely different. It was a lot of tutus,
Mm-hmm.
but still, I learned a lot. I learned a lot
Oh
for
my
those,
gosh.
yeah, experiences.
I
Mhm.
love it. Well, you know what I want to do is I want to show folks a little bit of your work. So let me see. Hang on. We're going to try and share some fun stuff. Here we go. I'm going to get rid
Yes.
of this. And so, yeah, can you tell us about this first shot here?
Yes, so it's you in the middle. If
Yeah.
people don't know that, Josephine is on the left, and
Mm-hmm.
Benjamin is on the right. Um, that was Aci, Galatea, and Polyphemo
Correct. Yeah.
by
And I
Handel.
have to say
Yeah,
I love how you handled so the character of Polyphemos is a cyclops.
Cyclope. Yeah,
So one eye. So how do you do that in an authentic type of way? And I loved this headdress that sort of came over one of Ben's
yeah.
eyes and it was just brilliant. Just brilliant. Um next we have which production was this? This
That was
was
that's also Handel. It's
oh yeah.
Amadigi di Gaula.
Right, right,
Yes,
right,
yes.
right,
I
right,
love
right.
that show because we had dancers
Mm.
during that show. So we have the dancer here, the three Furies, and
Oh
in the
yes.
center you have I think Melissa, the sorceress,
Mm-hmm.
and it was sung by Suzanne Lomler.
Yes.
Very, very,
Excellent.
very good singer.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Oh yes.
Dancers again.
Yes.
So you can see that I really like, even if I work a lot for opera. I mean, in Baroque opera you have dancers.
Right.
So when people say, "Oh, you do opera or dance," I still have the feeling to do dance costume when I'm working on Baroque operas. So yeah, dancers, and that's Mare,
Mm-hmm.
Ariane Bacchus.
Oh yes. And actually, sorry, I want to get this out of the way so people can see the whole shot. But
Yes.
one thing that strikes me about so the female dancer that we have in the middle and sort of dancers in general at that time, and maybe it was a national style type of thing in terms of the hemline down by the ankle. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, exactly. So actually, when you work a lot with 17th and 18th century sketches,
Mm-hmm.
because they had also their costume designer at that time, and sometimes you completely lost the annotations,
Mm-hmm.
but you can you know that it was a costume for a dancer or a singer, especially on the woman costume, because you can see the length of the skirt, and then for the dancer it was always shorter to just to show the steps, to show the
Yes.
dance.
I
Hmm.
love that. It's just, it's sort of, it's some of those little things that I think are just so fascinating and so charming.
Hmm. So if
Um,
it's long, it's a singer. If it's long, if there is a cape, if there is many things, it's a singer.
mhm.
If it's a lighter
Yes.
costume, it's a dancer.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Speaking of dance, oh my
Yes.
goodness. Oh, sorry. Hang on one second. Where did we go? There we are.
So
Sorry about that.
yes. No.
So this is a lot of movement. Um,
Yes.
can you tell me about this photo?
Yes, that's a very good memory of the Beethoven Festival.
Ah, yes.
Yes, it was the only ballet written by Beethoven. So it was Les Créatures de Prométhée,
Wow.
um, Prometheus creatures, I guess in English.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so we had all these kind of like ancient Greek costume. They were all see through, and it was magical with the light.
Mm.
And if this, maybe it's the next picture. We had also
Let's see.
two dancer. Not
Oh
this one.
no.
Okay, I'll go back. I'll go back to
Yeah.
it later. But
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this group, we had also dancer from the Joffrey Ballet,
Oh.
dancing with this group, and it's yeah, it's a very good memory.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And I just love, you really get, even especially in this photo, obviously, you get that sense of motion, but the fabric has it. I love when fabric follows a dancer,
Mhm.
and it's like a partner to the dancer, and it moves so beautifully with them. Well, yeah, so let me move forward. So here we have a side by side of one of
Yes.
your renderings of the costume, and then the performer wearing it.
Yes.
And
So yes.
this is just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's one of my favorite costume. I think that was worn by Alexa Gray,
Mm-hmm.
and he was singing the role of Dardano in again Amagigi di Gaula.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yes, so I don't know what can I say about
Yeah,
the sketch.
no, that's
You know,
great. I
there's
think it's
always
beautiful.
very small differences. Maybe not this
Mm-hmm.
one is not the strongest difference. You can see his hat is a bit different.
Yeah.
That what was drawn at the beginning, but
Mm-hmm.
that happens all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think
Because
it's beautiful.
you can draw something, and then
Mm-hmm.
while things are being built, you're like, oh, but actually that's way better.
Mm-hmm.
So that the picture is a bit small,
Yep.
but that was to show one of the first steps in my drawings. I just draw naked bodies, and I have
Ah,
like a pile of naked bodies that I will take as a base of my costume sketches. Hmm.
excellent. Excellent. Ah, yes.
Yes, one of my favorite show
Wonderful.
with Haymarket, Don
Yes.
Quixote,
Yes, and this is
Tedemans
lovely
Don
Peter
Quixote.
Van de Graaf,
Yes.
who, if you've been in Chicago for a while, you know Peter. He's been incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe you will recognize Caitlin Foley on the
yes,
left,
yes, in the
and
background there.
yes, and again Suzanne Lomler. She is it's cross dressing.
Oh,
She's
right.
wearing a man costume. Yes.
Oh man, it's just incredible. Okay, I want to keep going. Oh, look at this.
Yes.
Just beautiful. Please tell us what's going on here.
Okay, so that was my project with Elements Contemporary Ballet.
Mm-hmm.
It's a contemporary group of dance in Chicago, and
Mm-hmm.
it's always very exciting to work with them. This show was about the life of the Sun King,
Mm-hmm.
Louis the 14th, and so Joe Carana, who is in the middle, was dancing as the Sun King,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it was amusing because it's a contemporary dance group, and they wanted Baroque costume, and they showed me plenty of things like super minimalist costumes.
Mm.
And I was like, well, and but you want Baroque at the same time, like Baroque is the contrary of minimalist. so
Right.
so how
Right.
I'm going to do to make that work, and it was a lot through the fabrics, the little details,
Mm-hmm.
and the imagination of the costume of that time that I thought was a good way to mix both.
Wonderful. Let's take a look at one more.
Hmm.
Oh,
Ah, yes,
Kareem. Oh, yes.
a
So this is
very
Kareem
special
Suleiman.
project. Yes.
Yes, tell us about this.
Okay, so Karim Suleiman. So I worked with him a few years ago because before he recontacted me for that project.
Mm-hmm.
We worked on a show called Gli Equivoci nel Sambiente,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow we were keeping in touch, and he thought about me when he was nominated for a Grammy in 2019, so just last year.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me to if I can design something for him because it was a very very special occasion, and so he wanted something like he don't want like a crazy costume.
Right.
He didn't want to be like theatrical. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted something more like it looks like you know over more, I don't want to say that common costume, but more you come closer, the more you see details and you see how
Mm-hmm.
actually it's particular.
Mm.
So I designed this jacket. It's a damask fabric,
Mm.
so it's all black, but then when you come closer you see that so the fiber is waved differently, so you have
Mm-hmm.
creation of pattern on the fabric. And he has also leather, bands
Mm.
of leather on it, and a lining. The lining was a bit more crazy. It was a silver
Yeah.
lining
Oh. Oh.
that you see
Which
actually
we are
through.
all looking
Yeah,
for right now.
exactly. That's a good occasion to say that. So yeah, and like the leather, they were like holes in the leather, so you could see the silver lining through it. So I think it's the type of things that I really love. It's like you think it's pretty common thing, and then you come closer and you see all those details.
Oh my goodness.
And he won the Grammy. That was a big
Yes.
surprise. It was
Yes.
incredible
Oh my gosh,
to
yes,
see that.
absolutely.
Yes.
Friends, if you don't know Kareem Suleiman, please find him on the interwebs. His Monteverdi album, it was wonderful. He has a new album out of Schubert pieces. It's just incredible. So, oh my gosh, these are wonderful. Let me do this and bring us back here. Oh my gosh. Hi again. And thank you everyone for, putting up with my technology stuff. It's so fun. Um, so I want to take a pause for a second and say hi to folks. We've got Brandon Aker. I think you might know this guy. He says
Who
he
is
knows
that?
you.
Oh, this is Brian Aker, not Brandon.
Brian, yes, exactly. Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Yeah.
So Brian is my husband twin brother,
Yes. So
and
for those
also a
of you,
musician.
yes. So if you tuned in a few weeks ago, you saw Brandon Aker. Brian is his brother. Brian, we're glad you stopped by to say hello. Oh my gosh, I love it. And Lynn Schatz, it's so good to have you
Hi,
here
Lynn.
again. It's always so good to see you. Oh my goodness. So, my dear, I want to keep going. So you have you've become this wonderful costumer. You've been working around the country. You've also been working you've got a collaboration in Europe right now, correct? There's a project
In
over
New
there
York,
in
is it?
Europe.
Oh yeah, in
Is
Europe.
it
Yes, 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 yes. I'm
what's
working. Well, I had a big meeting on Tuesday with the Royal Swedish Opera in Stockholm,
yes?
and I'm very happy. Actually, it's this project is for the spring 2021,
Oh
so
wow.
it's not cancelled yet. And yeah, hopefully. So we are working on it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a completely new creation, and the
Mm-hmm.
stage director and choreographer is Karine Modig,
Mm-hmm.
that I met first through the Boston Early Music Festival, and then I worked with her group named the Nordic Baroque,
Mm-hmm.
And then she contacted me for this new show with Stockholm Opera.
Oh my gosh. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
I hope that it continues as
Yeah, me
planned.
too.
I know people really will love seeing what you've created. Um, well, let's talk about how you got uh, to collaborate with Third Coast Baroque. We did a program. We did a program in November called the French Connection,
Oui.
and ouais, that's the best French I've got.
Ouais.
Ouais. Uh, and Ruben and I were talking about ways to incorporate a visual aspect uh, to to the program, and we both thought of you and had asked you to develop some illustrations, which I'm going to share here in a second. But would you mind just sort of talking about how you came to develop the illustrations for that program for TCB?
Yes. So, well, you said the magic word to me, you and Ruben. You say, you do
Oh.
whatever you want. And I was like, it's like, wow, it's wonderful. And at the same time, you're like, okay, I can do whatever I want.
Oh,
What
sorry.
do I want?
Uh-huh.
So well, I started, I think, to think about the title is a French connection, and so there's a connection between what I thought between our modern audience. So now
Mm-hmm.
us in a concert in the 21st century and this music from the 17th and 18th century, and I said like, how can I make that connection?
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I thought I reminded me. I was thinking like, okay, did someone made that connection before? And somehow I thought about a painting of Picasso who was Spanish, and he did his own version of a Velázquez painting,
Uh-huh.
Las Meninas, and so two Spanish painters from two different centuries.
Wow.
And I thought that was so interesting, like to take this very very famous painting and make it your own. And then years ago, I went to an exhibition of Matisse in
Mm-hmm.
London, and before that, I didn't know a lot about Matisse.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a French painter, and at the end of his life, he was doing a lot of cutouts
Mm-hmm.
of dancers, very minimalist,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was wonderful to see how, with just like a few shapes, you understand the movement.
Mm.
And I thought that was amazing. And somehow this, I thought how I can take inspiration for that. So I began looking into those paintings from French painters, like Boucher or Watteau.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, can I do something like that? Maybe in the style of the cutouts of Matisse. And this is how I came up with more like silhouettes, but enough movement that you can kind of recognize, enough element you can recognize, but being very also minimalist at the same time.
Wonderful. I want to see if I can pull up. Uh, yes, here we go. I
I
want to.
have them. I have the real one near me if you want.
Yes.
That might be
Uh,
even I don't know. This is one of my favorite. Oh,
oh,
the Pompadour
excellent.
one.
Actually, let me go back.
You
Why
have
don't
them?
you show that again?
Okay. The Pompadour.
Yes,
That's
Madame Pompadour.
yeah, that's a painting. I don't know if you can still hear me like that. That's a that's a painting from Boucher of the Marquise de Pompadour, so very famous. And I think it's when you know the painting, you recognize that right away. And so it's a lot like
Absolutely.
like how I took like her posture, the few elements that she has a letter in or a book in her hand,
Mm-hmm.
um, the big bows on her costume, also their little pink shoes here.
I love it.
So that was the idea, to take a famous painting of that time
I love it.
and
Well, I want
tweaking
to
them.
thank you. I want to share just a little bit of, let's see if I can get this to run, of the tambourine. Let's see if I can make things happen here. Nope. Hang on one second. Ta-dum. Beautiful. Ah, yes. Here we go. So, this was playing during the final movement of the concert. a piece by Jean-Marie Leclerc
Oui.
called Tambourin or Tambourine. And I love how you took elements of your illustrations and you sort of broke them down into different pieces. And then you animated them. And so we would get little portions of the illustrations revealed as the piece went on. And you'll forgive me for sort of flying through all of these as they materialize, but I just loved how this was projected above the artists during the concert, and it was just this wonderful little backdrop and how things just slowly materialized over the course of the performance. It was just really fantastic. And this one, I love the costumes or the dresses of these dancers. Sort of, they transform just ever so
Yeah.
subtly. I love
The
it.
color is changing.
The colors change, and it just they come to this wonderful point, and it just is so fantastic. Oh, I love it.
Well, thank you.
It's just so fun, and it was you get such a sense of movement in here and the excitement of that piece. So it was one of my favorite pieces on the on the program.
It's very cool that you actually. I'm surprised that you choose this one, and it's very funny because actually today I have a little tambourine as my necklace here. That's a gift
my
from
gosh.
Brendan. So
Aw.
tambourine is one of my favorite instruments.
Oh
I
my
have
gosh.
one too. I'm trying to play, but I'm not good at all because I'm not a musician. That's what people have to know. It's not because I'm designing for opera that I'm a musician. Not at all.
No.
No. But I appreciate a lot, and also a funny thing is that I think in all the painting I took inspiration from, this one is Italian, or I think it's an Italian dancer painted by a French painter or something like that. But there's a link with Italy in this specific painting, and I was like, oh, it's Italian, it's not French. But I was, well, after all, can you talk about French music without talking about Italian music at all? I mean, there's a connection that you cannot
Sure.
forget. So
Absolutely. I mean, and that was something that we were trying to emphasize in those concerts. How these composers were starting to merge these national
yes,
styles into this new thing. I mean, it's sort of like yourself. These individual identities that merged to create something new. So, I mean, it's a circle of life. You're just the epitome of a beautiful hybrid. It's wonderful. I want to stop for just a second. We have some lovely sentiments here. We have greetings from Tunisia, from
oh yes,
Sonia.
that's my cousin
It is your
Sonia.
cousin,
Yes.
Sonia. Thanks for being here. And Sophia.
Oh, that's my mom.
Hi. Hi, Mom. We hope you had a lovely Mother's Day.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think
adorable.
there's somebody requesting more tambourine lessons. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Do you know Dan Mayers? Yeah, I had a lesson with him, and I was not able to do what he was asking.
Maybe we can have a tambourine masterclass. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. Wow. It's always so exciting to create something new with something you didn't even know was there. And I've said this a lot. Collaboration is one of my most exciting things. That's one of the things I love. And you get all of these different perspectives together, bringing their own histories and their own impressions and their own experiences to create something that never existed before. And I feel like that's what we were able to do with those beautiful illustrations in combination with the music and all those wonderful things. Miriam, thank you so much for being here today. It's been really fun to talk to you, and I am still fascinated by everything that you do, from biology to dance to illustrations to costuming. And I didn't even get to the fact that you've been in movies. Folks, yes. Can
when
you
I
just
was younger.
Yes, can you just quickly tell us what your movie experience has been like as a little
Yeah, like
footnote?
I had like small roles in
Yeah.
movies or like also advertisement, and but maybe the one that um I don't know how to say that. Well, I was the double of Natalie Portman when they filmed Star Wars in the 90s because it was
Yes.
filmed in Tunisia. So we were about the same height, almost. I was a bit younger, but like
Uh-huh.
we were like pretty similar enough to for me to be her double. So I had like the same outfits and all those
The
scenes
headdress
when
and the makeup and the whole
yeah,
bit and the
no, because it was
oh.
only when it was in Tatooine, so she was like a
Mhm.
simpler version of
Mhm.
the queen. I don't know, but I had like a crazy
Nuts.
wig. I had like a crazy like addition on my head,
Oh my
and but it
gosh.
was fantastic, and yeah, because that was filmed in Tunisia, actually, in the Sahara.
That's incredible. So
Yeah.
folks, Star Wars. Star Wars gets connected to Baroque music in a certain way through Miriam. It all works.
Sure.
I promise. Uh-oh. All right, sorry. We got one more comment from the Peanut Gallery here. Brandon, they fired her from Star Wars because she was more beautiful than Natalie Portman. So that's why we don't see you in the other movies, huh?
Exactly.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, Miriam, again, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so glad we got to share your story with everybody. And thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm so glad you were with us today. This is so much fun. This brings so much joy to my life. I hope it does for you as well. And with that, Miriam, I'm going to let you go. And I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend to come.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to work with you, Angela, through Third Coast Baroque or another company. So
Oh,
thank you, and thank you for doing all that. For having all these interviews and for
oh.
being like so energetic and like giving us energy because it's a very weird time for us artists right now. So
It is, and
thank you.
it is absolutely my pleasure, and I'm glad I could be here to do that for you all. So we'll see you soon, Miriam.
Bye bye.
Bye. Oh, folks, isn't she wonderful? I'm so glad we got to chat. And there's so much she's doing. So if you want to know more about Miriam, you can go to her website. You can find her on social media. Follow her on Instagram. I mean, come on, she's doing some amazing and beautiful things. Um, I just want to say thank you again. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your time with us. And just a reminder that if you haven't already, please go ahead and follow and subscribe and be with us in community online. We'd love to know how things are going. And we'd love to hear from you. We've been doing these web series interviews for a little over a month now. What would you like to know? What could we improve for you? What do you think's going well? So feel free to send us a message on Facebook or through YouTube or our website. You've got all the info right there. So and also one final reminder: May 30th. Put it on your calendar, 1 p.m. Central Time. We're going to be online, and we will be multiple places: website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It will be simultaneously broadcast on all of our channels. So put that in your calendar, and we will see you for that. But in the meantime, we'll be back next week. I'll announce our guests soon. It's a surprise. And we hope to see you again next week on TCB Tuesday when we meet another artist, and another Third Coast Thursday when we talk to more people behind the scenes. Until then, thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you soon.